Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Agyantimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Mukham Karoti Vachanam Pangam Langyate Girim Yat Kripatamaham Bande Shri Guru Dinataranam Parmananda Madhavam. I hope everybody can see the screen. Last week we had completed the 4th chapter, and we'll resume our ongoing discussion of the Bhagavad Gita from the 5th chapter, which is titled Karma Yoga, Action in Krishna Consciousness. So as usual, we'll start with a quick recap, and if you can participate by raising your hand. So the first 6 sections of the first 6 chapters of the first section of Bhagavad Gita. So chapter 1, the title is anybody can raise their hand. Title of the chapter 1 is Observing the Armies in the Battlefield of Kurukshetra. Chapter 2, title. Okay, Dhaval Prabhu.
Contents of the Gita summarized.
Thank you. Contents of the Gita summarized. Chapter 3, Pat Prabhu.
Karma Yoga.
Thank you. Karma Yoga. Chapter 4, Sunil Prabhu.
Transcendental knowledge.
Transcendental knowledge. Chapter 5, which we will be doing today.
Karma Yoga, Action in Krishna Consciousness.
Thank you. Karma Yoga, Action in Krishna Consciousness. And chapter 6,
Dhyan Yoga.
Dhyan Yoga. Okay. So what were the things to memorize in the 4th chapter? Anybody remembers the 4 sections, the 5 sections in the 4th chapter?
GUARA.
That is correct. That's the mnemonic. So G was for
Getting the knowledge. U for understanding the knowledge. A is for applying the knowledge. R is for realizing, and A is for advantage of this.
Okay. Thank you. So what is the Gyan that Krishna wants Arjun to have? Ravi Prabhu?
The jnana, the purpose of the jnana for the purpose for which we have to act. Like the purpose of karma, what is that purpose? That jnana is what Krishna is want him, and eventually.
Okay, very good. Anybody else? Okay. So very close. So the Gyan that he wants him is the knowledge about Nishkam Karma. That one of the main things that Krishna tells Arjun is that the jiva is responsible for the actions and will get entangled. So the only way not to get entangled is Nishkam Karma. And if you remember, Krishna used himself as an example, that I do so many things, but yet I'm never entangled because I am neutral. How does one get this knowledge? So this relates to the G part. So Aradhana had mentioned about the 5 sections. Okay, Seema or Dhaval?
Scriptures, Prabhuji?
Close. The G part was that you get the knowledge from the disciplic succession. So Krishna says that he personally comes in and establishes the parampara. So the knowledge that comes from Krishna through a bona fide disciplic succession. So get it from Krishna via parampara. How can karma and gyan be the same? So this corresponds to the U, the understanding section of the chapter. That was the understanding that Krishna gave, that how can karma and gyan be the same? Okay, Ravi Prabhu?
First step is like not doing vikarma, Prabhuji, and then if one starts acting piously, performing karma, and slowly that even understanding karma binds, like one goes to transcendence. So no reactions, that leads to Nishkam Karma Yoga, and because one starts performing Nishkam Karma Yoga, he reaches the stage of Atma Jnana, and from there finally Bhagavad Jnana. So he is still acting. So that is why karma and jnana are equal. Like you gave a diagram last class.
Okay. So yes, so they can be the same if the destination is the same. So if karma can be performed without any attachments, then just like gyan, there is no reactions. With karma also, there are no reactions. So this was the essential understanding that Krishna gave to Arjun. That because if you remember, the third chapter opened with Krishna being asked by Arjun that what is the difference between karma and gyan? And here he is saying that if karma is performed without any attachments, then it is like gyan, because they don't have any reactions. Now bear in mind that the gyan that Krishna is speaking about is Atma Gyan. So this is not the speculative study of the scriptures or anything, but this is acting from the platform of the soul. That once you know that you are not the body, but the soul, that is the gyan that is being spoken about. When a person realizes he's not the body, but the soul, then he's not bound by the reactions of his work. So the same thing also happens when a person does karma without any desires. Okay. So how do karma and gyan protect each other? So this is the application part of the chapter. Go ahead, Shivani. We can't hear you, Shivani. I think last week also. No, we can't hear you.
Maybe Mataji can type quickly.
That's okay. So this is the application part of the chapter where Krishna explains that karma, because it allows one's senses to be engaged during the performance of the activities, it gives protection to the performer. And Gyan is what the person continues to grow or continues to realize. So the connection between karma and Gyan is what is known as Vigyan or realization. That when somebody knows what needs to be done, that is Gyan, then the person does it, that is karma. But when the person does it, then he realizes the theoretical knowledge from a practical perspective, and that is Vigyan. So that is how these two things protect each other through the channel of Vigyan. That I tell somebody to do something, and just based on faith, the person might do it. But when the person does it, then they realize that, yes, this thing is actually beneficial to you. And then the person does it with more conviction, and the person gets even more realizations. So this is the cycle by which karma, Gyan, and Vigyan, they nourish each other. So we now come to the last part, the advantage, that how can one be protected from sinful activities. Okay, Shivani, let's see if we can hear you now. I'm sorry, Shivani, we still can't hear you.
So, Prabhu, I'll raise my hand.
Yes, go ahead, Pyali.
So, Prabhu, how is this useful is by if we have the knowledge and the way we know how to apply it, then what do we get is karma without any repercussions, the nishkam karma, and then we also get to know about the soul, the knowledge of the soul, and the knowledge that is given in the scriptures, and all of this is to get the right knowledge and to be able to take advantage of it. You need the shelter of a guru, of a bona fide guru.
Very good. So the last part, the advantage, kind of it kind of ends where Krishna begins with. He begins with the source of getting the knowledge is from a guru through parampara, and then he ends at pretty much the same point, saying that you take shelter of a guru, and if you're guided by the guru, then by that knowledge you will be protected, and you will know what to do and not to do. So this was a quick recap of the chapter. So flow we already discussed as part of when we did the questions. Let's do the recitation. So it's a good idea for us to revise the verses that we had started from. So do we have volunteers for the first chapter, first verse?
I can do.
Okay, go ahead, Pat, Prabhu.
Yeah, it is.
Dhritarashtra Uvacha.
The Dhritarashtra Vacha, Karma Kshetre, Kurukshetre, Karma. Dhritarashtra Vacha, Karma Kshetre, Kurukshetre. Oh, it's just not flowing.
Okay, no worries. I'll come. Anybody else?
Prabhu, can I? धृतराष्ट्र उवाच धर्मक्षेत्रे कुरुक्षेत्रे किम अकुर्वत संजय मामकाश् पाण्डवश्चैव धर्मक्षेत्रे कुरुक्षेत्रे
Samveta.
संवेता युत्युत्सवा मामकाश् पाण्डवश्चैव किम अकुर्वत संजय.
Good. Do you want to go with the translation?
Yeah, I can go. I think he's asking, Dhritarashtra is asking Sanjay, why on this land of holy land of the land of pilgrimage, the two my sons and Pandu's sons are together to fight. What's happening? Please tell me. Please narrate to me.
Okay, thank you, Prabhu. Second chapter, verse 12. Sunil Prabhu, you want to try?
Prabhu, can I?
Go ahead, Aradhana.
नत्वे वाहम जातु नासम नत्वम नेवे जनाधिपा न चैव न भविष्यामः सर्वे वयम अतः परम.
Very good.
Options are to
So this is one of the key verses where Krishna says, anybody wants to do the translation?
Varsha.
Laji Prabhu, you're not on mute, just to let you know.
Oh, sorry.
Never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be.
Okay, very good, Seema. Okay, very famous verse from the second chapter. 247, it begins with Karmanya. I think this verse almost everybody in India knows. Karmanya. Somu Prabhu, you want to try?
I can do it, Prabhu.
Go ahead, Seema.
Karmane vadi karaste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phale hetur bhur mastev sangostva karmi.
Very good, very good.
This was in that Mahabharat, right?
Yes, this used to be there in the Mahabharata. So almost everybody kind of remembered it. So you have the right to perform your it's there. So you have a right to perform your prescribed duty, but not entitled to the fruits of action. Never consider yourself the cause of the results of your activities, and never be attached to not doing your duty. Okay. Chapter 3, verse 13. So this is the verse about offering. Yagashishta sanasanta machante sarvakilvisha punjate de togam papa ye pachante atma karmanat. The devotees of the Lord are released from all kinds of sins because they eat food which is offered first for sacrifice. Others who prepare food for personal sense enjoyment verily eat only sin. 434. This is another famous word, starts with Tadvidi.
Pranipatena. Prabhu, can I?
Okay, since no one else is volunteering, go ahead.
प्रणिपातेन परिप्रश्नेन सेवया उपादेक्षन्त्या ते ज्ञानं ज्ञानिनस्तत्त्वदर्शिनः.
Very good. And do you remember the translation?
Yes, Prabhu. Just try to learn the truth from the spiritual master, inquire from him submissively, render service unto him. The realized soul can impart the knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth.
Right. So in a way, this is probably the most important point Krishna gives in the 4th chapter, which is taking shelter of a spiritual master within a disciplic succession and getting the knowledge in a mood of humble and submissive inquiry. Okay. So we now start with the 5th chapter, which is Karma Yoga, action in Krishna consciousness. So the 3rd chapter, as you remember, is titled Karma Yoga. The 5th chapter is also Karma Yoga. The difference between the 3rd and the 5th chapter is the 4th chapter, where Krishna gives Arjuna the knowledge of acting, how properly to act. So the 5th chapter is, in a way, a culmination and summation of the 3rd and the 4th chapter. So it is a summation of karma and jnana. So let's look at the conversation so far. Quick recap that Arjun, he begins the Gita by saying that he does not want to fight, giving seemingly valid reasons. And then he says that he's confused and surrenders. Okay, somebody is not mute. I think it's Varsha. Probably need to mute yourself.
I think it's Shrivani, because she was talking in Bengali.
Oh,
Shrivani, can you mute?
Shivani, you want to mute yourself? It's funny, we were not able to hear you when we wanted to hear you.
Can you hear now?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear now.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. I'll mute myself.
Okay. So the conversation so far is Arjun refusing to fight, and then Krishna, he gives him the instructions that he's not the body but the soul, Sankhya. Then the guidance to perform his prescribed duties, which is karma. And then he says the biggest protection is that you act on the platform of the knowledge of the soul, which is Buddhi Yoga. So this is Krishna in the 2nd chapter. The 3rd chapter begins with Arjun still being confused between karma and jnana, action and inaction. And then Krishna explains that one should act according to one's own adhikar or level of purification. And one who has desires must act religiously and get purified at the same time. And in fact, he says that even if one is purified, one should still continue to act without desires and be on the platform of Nishkam Karma to set an example for others. And then Krishna concludes by cautioning Arjuna against sinful activities. And so he speaks about lust, which is the reason why people perform vikarma. And then he says that with the knowledge, you defeat this lust. So in the 4th chapter, then we see that Krishna, he talks about this knowledge. And he essentially speaks about action in inaction. So inaction is jnana and action is karma. So we saw that how he speaks about one can act and not act at the same time. How? By acting without any desires. So the person is acting, but because there are no reactions, it is as good as not acting. And then he concludes the chapter. once again asking Arjun to fight. In the beginning of the 5th chapter, Arjun picks upon this once again. And he asks a question that is almost identical to the question that he asked at the beginning of the 3rd chapter, that which is better, work or renunciation? Krishna will answer this question in further details. Essentially, he will expand on the principles that he has already mentioned, and he will introduce the notion of bhakti in this chapter. So one of the things that we might wonder is that why doesn't Arjun get it? Krishna, in the 2nd chapter, he explained how acting on the platform of knowledge frees one from reaction. And then in the 3rd chapter, Arjun again says, I'm confused. Krishna explains in the 3rd chapter and the 4th chapter. And then in the 5th chapter, again, Arjun says, why? That I'm confused. And the reason that it is confused is because it is a confusing topic. That how is it that one can act but be considered on the platform of knowledge? And the converse is even more confusing. That how can one be on the platform of knowledge but not be at the same level of protection, the same level of purification as one gets through work, because conventionally knowledge is considered to be superior. So we'll try and understand this through an analogy or through an analogous conversation to see that what is it that Krishna is telling Arjun? Why is Arjun still confused? To some extent, Krishna is responsible for Arjun's confusion because he always leaves something open so that he can give him more. So Arjun is being successively taken to higher levels of realizations. And that is why Krishna leaves a little bit of doubt open over there. And then when Arjun asks clarification on the doubt, then he clarifies the doubt and then takes him one step further. So let's see that conversation. Before that, we'll just go over the structure of the chapter. So this is a small chapter, the second smallest chapter in the Bhagavad Gita, 29 verses, and divided into 3 sections. So the first section is a summation of Nishkam Karma. The second is understanding and this is essentially Krishna revisiting Nishkam in answering Arjun's question again, that what is the difference between karma and jnana. Now Krishna is leading Arjun to a higher level of understanding, and then he talks about the 3 doer. So doership is one of the most important tattva that Krishna gives us in Bhagavad Gita. It leads to so many understandings. And Krishna is waiting till the 5th chapter to give that understanding to Arjun. He does not give him directly because he wants to make sure that he has understood the fundamentals. But once he gives him this understanding, Krishna will not speak about Nishkam Karma again throughout the Gita. Because this is key in understanding. Once you have understood it, Arjun understands it, he has an aha moment, and then he does not ask, and Krishna will not speak about it again. And if you notice that there are just 4 verses in this section. So it's a key section. And then Krishna takes Arjun to a higher platform of understanding, which is liberation. So these are the three sections: NDL, Nishkam Karma, doership, and liberation. So as I said, let's try and understand the persistent confusion in Arjun's mind by an analogous conversation. So this is a mother trying to feed her child with spinach. Some children like it, most of the kids don't. So the child says that I will not eat spinach. It's too bitter. So this is Arjun saying that I will not fight because the consequences are unpalatable. The mother says that if you don't eat it, you will become weak and fall sick. So this is Krishna saying, if you do not do your prescribed duties, you will incur sinful reactions. Now the child says that, is there no alternative? Arjun asking for alternatives. So this is not an explicit question. That's why I put a star over here. It's an implicit question. Arjun doesn't really ask this question, but Krishna assumes that Arjun would want alternatives. So carrying on with the analogy, the mother says that there is this herb which will also make you strong and healthy. So this is Krishna telling Arjun that if you work at the platform of Gyan, then there is no reactions. So the alternative to the bitter spinach is this herb. So the alternative to karma is Nishkam Karma. So then the child asks that, so the herb is the same as spinach, please give me the herb. So this is Arjun's first confusion, that if the herb and spinach are the same, give me the herb. So if karma and gyan are the same, then why are you asking me to fight? I'll just take the herb. I won't eat any spinach. So now you can see clearly that Arjun's confusion is justified. So what does Krishna say? So the mother says that you need to be healthy to take the herb, else you will become even more sick. And this is Krishna telling Arjun that if you renounce prematurely, you will fall down. Krishna talking about the adhikar, the necessary prior purification. So the child says that I first eat spinach, and when I'm strong, then I take the herb. So again, this is an imputed question. Arjun doesn't actually ask it, that first karma, then gyan. So then the mother says that even the spinach taken properly can be the herb. And this is Krishna saying that karma performed with detachment is the same as gyan. So this is Krishna explaining to Arjun in the 4th chapter. So at the beginning of the 5th chapter, so the child again asks that, so there is no difference between spinach and the herb, because Krishna is making the same statement. Now Krishna has said taken properly, the spinach can be the herb, and the child doesn't pay attention to the taken properly. So he's simply saying the spinach is the same as the herb. Is there no difference? So this is the opening statement in the 5th chapter, that there is no difference between karma and gyan. And what Krishna will tell Arjun in the 5th chapter, that actually the spinach tastes better with cream and is healthier also. So what Krishna will tell Arjun, that forget about herb, forget about gyan. Actually karma when it is done on the platform of bhakti, is more palatable, it tastes better, and is healthier for you also. So now we can see that why is it that Krishna was gradually growing Arjun from Vikarma to Karmakand, from Karmakand to Nishkam Karma, and from Nishkam Karma, he is now going to get him to the platform of Bhakti Yoga. So this is the point that Krishna is going to make, that karma is better than Gyan because it is easier on the platform of Bhakti. Okay. So this is just a recap based on the chapters. First chapter, Arjuna says, I will not fight, is bewildering and distressful. Krishna says that if you don't do your karma, you will incur sin. Second chapter. And then Krishna says there is Buddhi Yoga, which will also make you free of sins. This is again second chapter. Third chapter, Arjuna says, should I follow karma or Gyan? Krishna says, first be purified by karma, else you will become a pretender. And then Krishna says in the fourth chapter, karma done with detachment has the same results as Gyan. So then Arjuna opens up the fifth chapter, that what is the difference then between karma and Gyan? So the detachment is the cream of the spinach. Like Krishna has said that actually the cream with spinach is better, and Arjuna does not fully understand the cream part. He sees that karma is the same as Gyan. So he says, what is the difference between karma and Gyan? Krishna will again explain they are the same, but Nishkam is better. And then best of all, because it leads to bhakti. Okay. So developing this concept of Gyan, how Krishna is leading Arjun. So he begins with talking about Varnashram. So Varnashram is doing your prescribed duties for yourself. So the person is in the mood of attachment. He's attached to enjoying the fruits of the activity. He's attached to doing the activity, but he's doing it as per the scriptures. He is avoiding sinful activities and performing the pious activities. So that is the Gyan. The Gyan is the Gyan of the Varnashram Dharma. And the karma is Karma Kand or Sakam Karma. Now, as a person is acting on this platform, he will be gradually elevated to the platform of Atmagyan, or the knowledge of the soul. So that process is through submission of the scriptures. Because in Karma Kand, there are both prohibitions and injunctions. So while it allows for enjoyment, it also comes with many injunctions. Don't do this, don't do this. All this is sinful activities. It also has within it aspects of detachment. Give a part of your wealth in charity. Help others, serve others, give your time. So as a person does more and more of that, then the person begins to think less and less of himself as the body. And gradually the knowledge of the soul develops. Now, when the person is at the platform of the soul, then he continues to do his prescribed duties, but now he's doing it with detachment. Why? Because he knows that he's not the body. He knows that he is the soul, so he has nothing to do with the body, but he does the prescribed duties. Krishna says to set an example for others. And internally, he has no attachment to the activity or the fruits of the activity. Now, as the person works more and more on the platform of the soul, the person will begin to inquire about what is the relationship of the soul with the Supreme Personality. So this then leads to Brahma Gyan, or knowledge of Krishna. And from that knowledge, then one begins to execute their prescribed duties for the pleasure of Krishna, or the duties that are prescribed as part of bhakti. So this is the spiral that Krishna wants Arjun to follow. So Vigyan is the fulcrum between karma and Gyan. That one's intellectual understanding becomes realizations when one acts upon it. And then one's understandings increase. Based on that understanding, the person acts and the realizations increase. So in this way, this upward spiral from Varnashram to Atmagyan to Brahmagyan happens. This is the process of purification that Krishna wants Arjun and us to go through. So the question is that why does Krishna, and this is a summation, why does Krishna consider Nishkam to be superior to Gyan? So he says that it is non-different because it leads to the same destination, but it is superior because it is easier to perform. That being on the platform of Atmagyan is difficult. Unless your senses are completely purified, unless you're situated on the platform of the soul, it is difficult to be there. But when you're doing Nishkam Karma, your senses are engaged. And the detachment gets an opportunity to be developed gradually. It is safer. Why is it safer? Because if a person is aspiring to be free of desires and for some reason is not able to do so, then where does he fall? So if you remember the previous slide, he will fall to Sakam Karma. He will fall to pious acts. So he's trying to act without desires, without attachment. He's not able to do that. He becomes attached to the activity. But at least he is not performing sinful activities. But if a person is at the platform or trying to be at the platform of Atmagyan directly, if he falls, he will fall to Vikarma because he has no engagement with prescribed duties. So the example that is given is that a young person leaves the house and takes sannyas, but is not able to control his sexual desires. What does he do? He will engage in illicit sex. But a grahastha who is trying to control his desires, if he is unable to do so, will take shelter of his wife, which is not sinful. Maybe he has developed attachment, but at least he has not gone to the platform of being sinful. And best of all, karma contains gyan within it. So we saw that how gyan in the form of vigyan arises from karma. That as you perform your prescribed activities, you get realizations. You give more and more in charity, and then you realize that I am not the center of everything. You realize that compassion is satisfying at a deeper level. So all these realizations come in how? Through the performance of karma. And this process continuously purifies. So, Gyan, know your duty. Karma is karma kand. Gyan, it proceeds to the fact that to the stage that know that you are the soul. Karma is nishkam karma. Gyan, know Krishna, and karma is bhakti yoga. So this is the end of the first section. This is an important summation of the interrelation between Gyan and karma. So I see two questions, Ravi Prabhu and Piali. Ravi Prabhu, want to go ahead?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. In the 2 slides before, like you gave the chart, right, Prabhuji? So from Sakama Karma, it was directly leading to Atmajnan. So is something, because my understanding is from last class is, Sakama Karma on performing, one goes to Nishkama Karma, and on performing Nishkam Karma for a certain period of time, one will reach to Atmajnan. But this diagram looks a little different, so I was not sure if I missed any where, like, with my understanding.
So the way to understand is by looking at the spiral on the side, that as one does Sakam Karma, then the notion of the soul separate from the body becomes more and more prominent. That is the Vigyan part that happens when you act on the knowledge. So it's not a linear progression. It's not that one fine day from Sakam you suddenly wake up and say that now I know that I'm not the body. And Sakam to Nishkam can only happen when one begins to understand that they're not the body, but the soul. That's how a person becomes detached from the activities. So it's a transition. But the idea of the diagram is to show that when one performs karma, then the Vigyan that is embedded in the karma is the segue to the next stage of Gyan. That is why it is powerful. The karma will not keep you at that stage. If you do it as has been recommended with the proper consciousness, then it will allow you to advance to subsequently higher stages. Okay, Piali, you had a question?
Yes, yes, Prabhu, I did. Hare Krishna, Prabhu. So when we're talking about karma and then the spiral that with the knowledge, it slowly becomes nishkam karma or kind of detached karma, then how is it? And then, you are detached from your bodily conception and more knowledgeable about your spiritual identity. How does that spiral take you to the bhakti part is what I'm not sure. Like, in the sense, like, to me bhakti is kind of an attachment to Krishna, and so there is some attachment to the Supreme Lord, right? But when you're doing nishkam karma means there is this concept of detachment from the bodily conception, right? So it's like two sides. One is with attachment that has to work, and one side is without detachment, it has to work, right?
So it's a good question, Piali. This is essentially the essence of the 5th chapter. So Krishna has set up Arjun in this way, and he will lead him to how the detachment will get converted into, how the detachment from matter will get converted to attachment to Krishna.
Yeah. Okay.
I think it's coming up soon.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Sure. Okay, there are no more questions. Let's proceed to the next section. So the next section is, like I said, one of the key sections of Bhagavad Gita, which is written extensively about. There are big commentaries written about, because it establishes the basis of so many other things. Your relationship with the Lord, your relationship with the self, your relationship with past, present, future. So the underlying question over here is that who is performing the karma? Now, it's a little late in the day to ask this question, because we have already gone through almost 150 verses talking about karma. But this question can only be answered now because Krishna has already laid down the foundation of karma, atmagyan, and nishkam karma. So let us see now Krishna explain to us this mystery about who performs karma. So the first and obvious candidate is the jiva, or the living entity. The second candidate is Krishna. So many people say that the living entity, or the person who is responsible for his own good and bad deeds. And there are many people who say that God is making me perform. What can I do? That not a blade of grass moves without the desire of Krishna. And I am definitely bigger than a blade of grass. So obviously I am moving with the desires of Krishna. So all the karma is being performed by the Paramatma. And the third is Prakriti. So Prakriti is a stand-in for Swabhav. Where a person says that I'm acting out according to my nature. So nature later on is going to be analyzed into the mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance, Satagun, Rajagun, and Tamogun. But at this point, sufficient for us to understand that this is the third aspect, that people say that what can I do? This is my nature. Or you ask a person to do something and the person says, I just can't do it. That this is just not in my nature. I cannot. I remember when I was earlier on working, and there was another devotee who was working along with me, and very well liked devotees, and he was a very senior devotee. So even though he did not present himself as a devotee, but just because of his nature, he was very well liked. And his boss wanted to, he was working as a consultant, his boss wanted to hire him, give him a job, give him a good position. And I was like happy for him. I said that, this is great. People wait for so many years to get an offer like this. And then he says that I can't just sit behind a desk 9 to 5. That's not my nature. I need to be going out on the streets, doing Harinam, meeting people, giving them books, and I just need to be out there. And he turned down the offer. People were shocked, but he just turned down the offer. He worked for a little while. He wanted to make some bridge funds, and then he left. Now, in this case, he was inspired by bhakti, but Swabhav is a very powerful motivator. So, what are the considerations? So, if I say that the jiva is the doer, then a person can say, but the jiva is pure spirit. As the soul, it is always pure. It has nothing to do with matter. It has nothing to do with the material world. It is eternal. So how can it be entangled in karma? Karma is material. Karma is temporary. Karma is contaminating. Everything that the jiva is not. So the person may say, I do not accept the fact that the jiva is the performer of karma. So let's move to Paramatma. Paramatma cannot be the doer because he's always neutral and never implicated. If Paramatma was the doer, then he would be responsible for the pious and sinful activities. The pious activities, maybe one can make concessions, but sinful activities, somebody killing somebody else, stealing from somebody else, if you say that the Paramatma is the doer, then the Paramatma would be implicated in all these sins that are happening, which is not possible. And even the pious activities are not possible because of the neutrality. That if the Paramatma in me is making me do pious activities for which I'm going to enjoy, and the Paramatma in somebody else is making him do sinful activities for which he's going to suffer, then the neutrality is immediately compromised. So then the Paramatma cannot be the doer. Then Prakriti. Prakriti is dead matter. Prakriti does not have consciousness. So it's not possible for Prakriti to act. So Prakriti is like a machine. The machine may be able to do a lot of things, but somebody needs to sit on that machine and press the button and do something. Manipulate a lever, press a button, then only Prakriti can do. Otherwise, Prakriti cannot act. So neither the Jiva nor Paramatma nor Prakriti. So whenever they talk about karma, these are the three players that come up as the usual suspects. And it's intuitive also. That one says that yes, ultimately there are only two conscious beings in existence. There is the Jiva and there is Krishna. So the person will right away either say the Jiva or Paramatma. And if the person is has a little bit lesser understanding, and they will say it's just Prakriti. It's just the personal nature. So this is the mystery that Krishna wants to solve for us, that who does the karma. So let's see how Krishna solves that mystery. So he begins with the Jiva. The Jiva has desires. So Jiva wants success or wealth or domination. So that's what the Jiva does. That's the nature of the soul. The nature of the soul is that it is filled with unlimited desires. Whether in any way, whether it's in the material world, spiritual world, that is the essential nature of the soul. That it is filled with innumerable desires. That's what the Jiva does. Now comes the Paramatma. The Paramatma sanctions these desires. What is the basis on which Paramatma sanctions the desires? Based on what the Jiva deserves. So there's a person who might say that, may I be rich? And Paramatma will look at, does the person have enough pious credit to be rich? If yes, that desire is sanctioned. If no, not sanctioned. So in this way, the Paramatma is maintaining its neutrality. It is simply like acting like a teller in the bank. A person comes and writes a check. The teller sees if you have enough money in the account. Person gives you the teller gives you the money. If not, then no money. And then Prakriti executes. So Prakriti is the machine that is made of matter. So once the desire has been sanctioned by Paramatma, it is executed by Prakriti. So these are the three doers that collectively perform karma. At different points in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna will either talk about one of the doers or negate one of the doers. So he will, earlier on he said the jiva is not the doer. And later on he says that I am not the doer. At one point he will say the Prakriti is not the doer. But what he actually means, that not the exclusive doer. Any activity that happens with the joint cooperation of these three doers. That the jiva desires, the Paramatma sanctions, and Prakriti executes. So this is how Krishna solves the mystery of the doer. Now the question is that why is Krishna talking to Arjun about this? So that will take us to the science behind Nishkam Karma. Because we keep saying that Nishkam Karma is free of any reactions. But if you are doing something, you're culpable for it, there will be reactions. Now, we haven't asked this question because we have faith in Krishna's words. But if somebody was to think deeply about it, they would say, yes, I'm doing something. Even if I'm doing without attachment, I'm still doing it. I should be responsible for it. But Krishna is introducing this topic of the three doers to explain how can Nishkam Karma be the same as Gyan. So that point has been made that they are the same because they are the same in terms of their effect. That neither Gyan nor Nishkam has any reactions. So now that we know the mystery of the three doers, we can solve this mystery of how is Nishkam Karma free of reactions. So let's start with our Jiva. So the Jiva and Paramatma and Prakriti are the three doers. When a Jiva has desires, then because of the desires, it is invested in some kind of enjoyment. Because of that, once the Paramatma sanctions, Prakriti takes over and allows that activity to happen. And in this way, the Jiva is caught in the cycle of repeated birth and death. The notion of Nishkam is, sure what happened? So the notion of Nishkam is that you break this link of desire. So when you break this link of desire, then all the subsequent links, which is the soul that is obsessed with enjoying, the influence of Prakriti, the cycle of birth and death, the presence of Prakriti, all of them disappear. So who is left now? Only thing that is left is work with no reactions. So that is why Nishkam Karma has no reactions. Because that link of the desire that finally leads to the performance of activities sanctioned by the Paramatma is broken. So there is only the Jiva and Paramatma. And any work that the Jiva is doing is without any reactions. So I'm trying, so understanding the analogy of the three doers, understanding the three doers through an analogy is there's a person who is sitting in a chauffeur-driven car. The Jiva is the passenger. He's the one who's telling the chauffeur that go here, go there. I need you to take a right turn, left turn, drive fast, drive slow. And based on what the passenger is allowed, the driver drives the car. And the car, which is essentially material, which has no ability on its own unless activated, is Prakriti. So this is how we move in our lives. The Jiva in itself does not know how to deal with matter because they are inherently incompatible. The soul does not know how to deal with matter. Krishna knows, because Krishna knows everything. So the passenger doesn't know how to drive the car, but the passenger has desires. I'd like to go faster. I'd like you to take a turn over here, take the scenic route. Then the driver is, based on what the passenger is allowed to do, is manipulating the car, is manipulating the modes of material nature, is manipulating matter so that the desires of the passenger are achieved. So the three doers, Jiva, Krishna, and Prakriti. Jiva desires, Krishna sanctions, and Prakriti executes. So important mnemonic for us, JKP, DSC. Jiva, Krishna, Prakriti, desire, sanction, and execute. So this is the second section, understanding of the three doers. Okay, I see Piali's hand. You have a question, Piali?
Yes, not a question, but just a commentary. I mean, I couldn't help thinking when you were talking about the three doers, it sounds like a truth table. You know, the truth table that you have in computer science or in engineering, like, you know, when this is true and this is true and this is true, then the outcome can be true. Any one of them is a false, the outcome will always be a false. And three false together will always be a false. So it just reminded me of a truth table with three inputs. Just wanted
That's
to
true. That's true. All three of them have to line up.
Yes.
So like if I say I want to fly, then Prakriti will not cooperate because my body is not designed to fly. So so all three of them have to align before karma is executed.
Yes, even when we think of the desire, sanction, and execute, it's similar. They all have to line up.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Babu.
Thank you. Ravi Prabhu, I see you raised your hand.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. So, little bit confusion, Prabhuji, like, you know, Jiva without any desire, when he performs some action, because he still deserves, so Paramatma, Krishna sanctions, but because Krishna sanctions and Prakriti executes, one question is, like, executes and it will give results, right? When it performs something, it always gives results, but that, you know, so that result also, if I don't desire, so what is my motivation to perform any activity?
I think so. There are two statements here. I think one statement that you made is, I think, probably the source of your confusion. So you said that anything that I perform will give results. The whole basis of Nishkam Karma is acting without results. So the results of Sakam Karma is that it binds one to the cycle of repeated birth and death, repeated desires for enjoyment and suffering that comes on its own. So that part is eradicated. That part is removed. Now there are other reactions. So for instance, even out of Nishkam Karma, let's assume I'm digging a well. Then yes, the well will be dug. So that is a consequence of karma, which is the part of karma. But all the discussion that is happening so far is not Arjun asking about that if I shoot an arrow, will it fall on its target or not? And that is that has never been a source of confusion for Arjun. The source of confusion is that if I shoot an arrow, will I be implicated in the consequences of what happens? And that is what Krishna is explaining. That if you shoot the arrow, but you do it simply because it needs to be done, without any attachment for the activity or the consequence of the activity, then a person in that mode kills but does not kill. That is the definition of Nishkam Karma. The second point that you're making is that if the person is not going to enjoy the fruits of the result, then what is the point in doing the activity? So the points in doing the activity are the ones that Krishna has patiently been explaining to Arjun. That your senses need engagement. There is purification that is built into the activity. There is a safety net that provides. So that's the point of doing the activity. That as you do the activity, it will also help you advance and purify. Pat Prabhu, you had a question?
Yeah, I think I was just also listening to Ravi Prabhu. I'm getting a little confused. Let me try to see. So, if I recollect a little bit of your articulation, you said the Gita is divided into three sections or three major buckets. One is the karma side of it, six chapters, 18 chapters, right? Karma, bhakti, and gyan. Now, if all about karma, right? Right now we are into all the chapters which are into karma. I understand karma, then niskam karma, which is that no attachment to the results. And then now when I'm trying to look at the three doers you said, which is as an individual or as a body, the jiva, I will do, right? And then, but what I will do is what is sanctioned by Krishna, who is the
No, it's not that. It's the other way around.
Other way around. Okay.
So if what you do is what has been sanctioned by Krishna, then you're already perfected, because you're simply executing the desires of Krishna. But what happens is that we have our own desires.
Okay.
That I want to enjoy. And then Krishna sanctions it based on whether we deserve it or not, but it's our desire. It's our enjoyment. That is why it is our binding.
So we do beyond what Krishna sanctions, right? So that means somebody sanctions.
No. I'm just interrupting you.
No problem.
To catch the point while you're making it. We don't do what Krishna sanctions. Krishna sanctions a subset of what we desire. So between the three doers, the cycle of doership starts with the desires of the jiva.
Correct.
That I would like to do,
Right.
fill in the blank.
Right.
Now, when the desire comes, then Krishna comes into the picture, and then he says that let me see whether you're qualified to fulfill this desire, whether you have enough pious credits, you have enough abilities to fulfill this desire. If the answer is yes, then Krishna, he steps on the gas, he turns the steering wheel, and he takes you where you want. So while there are three doers, the cycle of doership begins with the desires of the jiva.
Okay. So now leading that path, then the third one you said Prakriti, which is fundamentally the nature, the Swabhavik. You are born with that, your DNA, your nature. You know, I'm not an ant, I'm a human being. So I will do 20 things that an ant cannot do. Thereby, each one of us have some level of rewired nature, which is Prakriti. And then we may be going little off course, which are not sanctioned by Krishna, but we still desire and do it, and thereby it probably not the right execution, or is it not the right, what I call it, it is not sacrosanct, or is not as per the scripture, as per the
Okay. So I understand where the confusion is. So the confusion is in the word sanction. So let's work on the nomenclature a little bit. So there are activities that are recommended by Krishna. They are the Vedas, right? So the Vedas are activities that Krishna strongly recommends. Do this, give in charity, live a pious life, be celibate. So many things Krishna says.
Yeah.
Those are things that Krishna recommends us to do.
Yeah.
Sanction is simply Krishna looking at the desire and saying, so even if a person has a desire, let me kill this person and steal from him. Who is sanctioning that desire? Krishna.
Correct.
Right. Krishna is the one, because the soul does not even know how to hold a knife.
Correct.
So the sanctioning is simply permitting the soul to act in a way that it has the requisite credits to do so. Now, the recommendations of Krishna are in the scriptures. If a person follows it, then he moves from vikarma to karma. He moves from vikarma to karmakant, from sinful activities to pious activities.
Yeah, but then yes, okay, that's approval. It's like a design principle or a guiding principle. He has it in Vedas, let's say. That's what I'm hearing from you. And then when we desire to do something, Krishna determines whether I should be given that sanction or approval to do it or not, and decides, then I do it, right? Eventually, the jiva does it. When he does it, now, is he doing because his intrinsic nature, which is the Prakriti, he's getting alignment to his Prakriti? Then what happens is I'm not wired to do, let's say, the good things, but I want to do the good things. But then how do I start to do a good thing? Because I'm wired to do bad things. My Krishna doesn't sanction me because I have not earned it. That's why I can't even memorize verse number 1. And no matter I'll try, I'm going to fail. So fail me in the sense it's a vicious circle. So that I'm not able to understand when do I get out. And then you said you break the chain. You had that stick broken. I think it's a good way to represent that. So somehow I have to come out of it, in that vicious. If I'm stuck in that, what is called that quicksand, to come out of the quicksand also I need somebody to pull me out, because the more I try, I'm going to sink in and in. So I'm not able to understand how do I escape from that. There has to be an escape velocity to come out of it, to get to that better, the desire which is as per the scriptures or as per the Vedas or as per the design principle, and actually do it. Then I almost Krishna sanctions me without even a second thought, and it's aligned to my prakriti. So I'm now in that right vicious circle. From a
Right. So it's a good question, and you actually answered the question in the elaboration of your question. But let me restate it.
Yeah.
So I am a jiva. I have an inherent nature, prakriti.
Yeah.
Driven by that nature, I have desires.
Yep.
And as long as the desires are being sanctioned, which are according to my nature,
yep,
they will further nourish my nature. And that is the vicious circle that we are caught in. That's why Krishna speaks the Bhagavad Gita. Knowing that you're in this vicious cycle, tadvidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. Saying, knowing that you're in this circle, inquire about something else. How did you get into the circle? You got into the circle because of your desires. Your prakriti, who is the architect of your prakriti? You are the architect of your prakriti. Your swabhav is inert. The soul cannot be subservient to something that is inert. The soul takes on that prakriti. The soul can give it off also. How? In the same way that it took it on. It desired to take it on. When a person desires to perform sinful activities, the person's nature becomes increasingly sinful. When a person desires to perform pious activities, the person's nature becomes increasingly pious.
Yep.
And a person who has a sinful nature can change that nature by reverse engineering the process. That through my desires, I got this particular nature. So then, let me align my desires. Let me see what the Vedas say. The Vedas says that it is sinful to steal. Even though I enjoy stealing and it has made me very wealthy, but let me reduce my stealing. And then, because these are prescribed activities, their nature is that as you follow them, they invariably give you happiness. That is the feedback loop. So that is why Krishna, he makes us understand this cycle, so that we ask ourselves the kind of questions that you are asking. That we are caught in this loop of the three doers. The Paramatma is neutral. The Prakriti I have inherited. And the Jiva is influenced by Prakriti. So Krishna is obviously not helping me here. In fact, if I want to do sinful activities, Krishna is sanctioning them. So he's not helping me over here. So who's going to help me? I'm going to help me. I'm going to take matters in my hand. I'm going to approach a spiritual master and inquire from him. I'm going to read the Bhagavad Gita. I'm going to understand what needs to be done and what should not be done. And then gradually I will change my Prakriti. And of course, Krishna gives the path of bhakti also, which is much more potent. But at this point, this is exactly the realization that Krishna wants us to reflect on.
Yeah, makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, so let me proceed to the third section. So, this is, we should remember this, JKP, DSC. So where are we now? So Krishna spoke about the three doers. He spoke about Nishkam. He spoke about that the desire for activity is broken. So Prakriti is conspicuous by its absence. So the jiva is now free from the material miseries. That's the nature of calm. Calm, which is sakam, that's the nature. Even pious activities, Krishna condemns because they will still bind you to the circle of repeated birth and death. As long as you have a body, you will eventually die. You will grow old, you will suffer. Even rich people suffer, even poor people suffer. Even kings suffer, even demigods suffer. So, as long as there is desires, there will be sufferings. And when you're nishkam, then there are no miseries. Now Krishna has also introduced himself as the doer. That I am the one who has been sanctioning all your desires since time immemorial. So now this is the scenario in which an aspiring transcendentalist is at. Now remember, this is the gradual development. So by gradually going through the process of Gyan, Vigyan and Karma, the Jiva is at the point that he understands that Krishna is the Paramatma, is the doer. He understands the implication of Kam and has become Nishkam and is free of miseries. But there is one thing that is missing. The absence of miseries does not mean the presence of happiness. The absence of miseries is just that there is no suffering. So now Krishna introduces happiness in the picture. That fine, now that you are at the state where there are no miseries, where there is no suffering, don't you deserve to be happy? Deva says, yes, absolutely. That's my nature, that I desire happiness. And now Krishna, he says, remember that Paramatma I spoke to you about? One of the three doers, you understood about him, right? Deva says, yes. And he says, that is your key to happiness. So Krishna talks about liberation through meditation on the super soul. That is the key to liberation. So what is the nature of a person who is meditating on the super soul? So having charted the course for happiness, Krishna, he sets up a few milestones for the jiva. Then how do you know that you are becoming attached to the Paramatma? So he says that one who has the focus on Paramatma will inherit that quality of neutrality from Paramatma. So initially we saw how the Paramatma was so neutral that it was sanctioning all kinds of desires. Pious, sinful, without attachment, with attachment, was sanctioning all kinds of desires. That is the quality that the jiva is particularly aware of. Why? Because he has just emerged from the stage of doership. He has understood that his activities are sanctioned by the Paramatma. He understands that the nature of Paramatma is neutral. And as he meditates on the Paramatma, he himself develops that quality of neutrality. And that neutrality manifests as equality in matter, in people, and in situations. So increasingly difficult levels of equality. At an initial level, there will be equality in matter, which means the person becomes indifferent to gold or stones, to wealth or not wealth. So the person becomes detached from the material things. As the person advances more the person becomes equal to people. So whether the person is a friend or a foe, the person treats the other person in the same way. Very difficult to do that. So this picture that we see is a person who is seeing a Brahman, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog eater. So all varieties of living entities. But he treats them the same. Why? Because he sees the same Paramatma in all of them. He sees the same quality of the jiva in all of them. He understands that this particular situation is simply a result of the past desires and activities of this soul that may have given it a body of a Brahman or a Chandal. But same soul, same super soul. So that equality manifests. And even higher is equality in situations. So equality in situation means that whether the person is being treated respectfully or disrespectfully, whether it is happiness or distress, whether it is honor or dishonor, the person is indifferent from it. So this is the turning point of the jiva, that from looking into matter, looking into karma, the person is now turned and is looking at Krishna. The initial absorption was, how can I be free of my miseries? Arjun was, I'm so confused. I don't know what to do. Everything that I do, I see misfortune. And Krishna said, okay, I'll tell you something by which you won't see misfortune anymore. And that is Nishkam Karma. But now let me tell you something by which you can see fortune. And that is focusing on Krishna. So this is the third section. This is also the segue into the next chapter of the Gita, where Krishna will exclusively speak about Astanga Yoga, the process of meditation on the Paramatma. So something for us to remember. So quick summation that Krishna explains that in answer to the question by Arjun, which is better, karma or gyan, he says that while they are the same, Nishkam is superior to Gyan because it protects and purifies. How this happens is explained through the three doers, Jiva, Krishna and Prakriti, desiring, sanctioning and executing. That is how the whole science of Nishkam Karma works. And as one is at that stage, one will also begin to acknowledge the presence of Paramatma, one of the three doers. So this leads to the knowledge of self, Atma Gyan, and Brahma Gyan, knowledge of Paramatma. And while Nishkam can protect from fall down, Nishkam can protect from miseries, it is only when one turns to Krishna that real happiness comes in the form of liberation. And this, at this point, Krishna is saying, he will take Arjun through higher levels. At this point, he is saying that now that you know the position of Paramatma, the potency of Paramatma, this happiness you can achieve through the process of meditating on the Paramatma. And how you can meditate on the Paramatma, that Krishna will explain in the process of Astanga Yoga in the next chapter. So this is the verse to memorize. famous verse, Bhoktaram Jagatapasama, Sarva Loka Maheshwaram, Surdam Sarva Bhutanam, Gyatva Mam, Shantim, Rachati. That a person in full consciousness of me, knowing me to be the ultimate beneficiary of all sacrifices and austerities, the Supreme Lord of all planets and demigods, and the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities, attains peace from the pangs of material desires. So this is as you can see, this is the fulcrum verse that Krishna talks about all kinds of material activities. That I'm the beneficiary of the sacrifices and austerities. I'm the Lord of all the planets and demigods, benefactor and well-wisher. But then he says, I am there. So Krishna has now firmly injected himself. So far he was talking about sacrifices and austerities and doing the right thing and being freeing from material miseries by developing detachment. Krishna was conspicuously absent. But through the process of explaining the three doers, he has introduced Arjuna and us to the potency of Paramatma. And in this verse, he is now laying his foundation. That I am the one who is actually sanctioning everything. I am the one who is the ultimate beneficiary. I am the one who is the Lord of everything that you see. So if you want to go beyond the stage of no suffering, then Gyatva Mam Shantim Rachati. Then you should come to me. So verse 2, memorize. So things to memorize for this chapter, the three sections in chapter 5. So we talked about NDL, Nishkam Karma, the three doers, and liberation. How do Gyan and Karma relate? That Gyan means to know and Karma means to do. So know your duty, that is Gyan, and execute it is Karma Kand. Know the soul as Gyan. Act on the platform of the soul is Nishkam Karma. Know Krishna, that is Brahma Gyan. Act on that platform is Bhakti. Why is Nishkam not enough? Because Nishkam can give you freedom from miseries, but will not give you happiness. What aspect of the Paramatma does the yogi meditate upon? His neutrality. We saw that. How does the Paramatma reciprocate? By giving the same vision to the soul. Who are the three doers? So this we know by now. Then summary of the chapter and recitation of 529. So a quick recap of the mnemonics. So we did the three sections of the Gita, Karma, Bhakti, Gyan. Then this is the Arjun's doubts in the first chapter. So you have his compassion and enjoyment, fear of sinful reactions, destruction of society, and indecisiveness. Then we have in the second chapter the sections Arjun's surrender. Then we have Sankhya, Karma, Buddhi Yoga, and Sthita Pragya. We have the sections in the third chapter Arjun's confusion, suitability of karma, potency of karma, universalness of karma, and no sense. We have the advancement of karma. We have Vikarma, Karmakand, Nishkam, Karma Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. And then we have the sections in chapter 4, which is getting the knowledge, understanding, applying, and realizing it, and finally the advantage of it, no sense. And then we did the three sections in the fifth chapter, Nishkam, doers, and liberations. and the three doers: Jiva, Krishna, Prakriti, desire, sanction, and execute. So that's the end. Like I said, this is the short ritual. I still went till 8:56. So let me pause here, see if there's any concluding thoughts or comments.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. As a practicing devotee, we are doing everything for the satisfaction of Krishna. Whatever extent we are doing the sadhana. This verse is pretty much talking about almost with less Krishna and more about the Nishkam and other things. What practical change, be it in consciousness or in action, that we can implement in our lives, Prabhuji?
This notion of Nishkam is very powerful, because what is binding us to this cycle of repeated birth is basically calm. Is basically our desires to enjoy the fruits of our activity, to be acknowledged as the owner of the activity, the performer of the activity. So developing that sense of detachment is something that is universal at all levels. The way the devotees develop the detachment is that they surrender their activities to Krishna. So when you do something for somebody else, then quite naturally, it is not your activity anymore. So if I'm singing kirtan and I'm doing it beautifully, then if I was just doing it for myself, then I would say, what a great singer I am. Look at all these people enjoying my singing. All glories to me. So that is sakam. But as a devotee, we say, okay, I'm singing beautifully for Krishna. These people are enjoying because this is kirtan. And all glories to Krishna. So naturally, we develop that notion of nishkam. So as you mentioned, that we are trying to do as according to our abilities. So devotees also are sakam. They also have a lot of desires that are separate from Krishna. They have desire, or they may have desire for sense enjoyment. They may have desire for illicit activities. So knowing the consequences of this and developing detachment from that is the other lesson that we can take. That we avoid sinful activities. We perform activities that are only prescribed. And when we perform those activities, we do it for the pleasure of Krishna. That breaks the cycle of karma, and it begins to start our engagement with Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Because we are kind of practicing more in relation with Krishna, without any motivation, doing looks little bit, not so encouraging. But both the points that you mentioned is being careful when we do sakam, not Krishna conscious, that also helps. And
no, the point I made is being careful when you're doing vikarma. So
sure.
One should not do sinful activities thinking that there will be protection over there. So that is one lesson, right? We understood how debilitating vikarma is.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
There's one little observation, Prabhuji, because you are so deep in this subject, realization. My little experience is um, when I do something and really ask myself, whatever that could be anything, whether it's in line with Veda's principle that you said, or because I don't know those Veda's principle. Just after doing it, if I just ask myself, just to myself, am I feeling good about it or not so good about it? I get some level of realization. Something tells me, my consciousness tells me, no, it was not good, right? I may not be able to admit it, but I can admit it to myself. So where I'm going with that is that there is somebody kind of making me realize. Is that consciousness making me realize? Because I'm not trying to go and look at Veda's principle and say it is in line with those guiding principle or the design principle, right? The as per the scripture. Because I've talked to some people who are, let's say, criminals, literally. They also admit in a very simple conversation, after doing a criminal activity, they don't feel good about it. So they may not state it in a court of law or admit it in a larger forum, but in a simple conversation, something tells them that that's not right. And it is so that there is something, just like you
So
said,
that is Paramatma.
that's Paramatma, right? So, right.
So he is neutral, but his neutrality is slightly nuanced. He's also your conscience. So this inherent sense of right and wrong.
Yeah.
The difficulty and Krishna does not stress too much upon it, is that people will then confuse the Atma with the Paramatma.
Yeah.
Right. So if Krishna says, and Krishna does say, he says that at other places he says that I'm your well-wisher as a Paramatma. I have been trying to set you to the right path since time immemorial.
Yeah.
Right. So that conscience that tells you that maybe you should not have done this, and maybe you should have helped that person.
Yeah.
That is Paramatma, but it doesn't force you to act.
Doesn't force. Yeah. And the other, absolutely, I am with you on that. And there is, it's almost like a mirage. The more I'm trying to understand the basics through your beautiful teachings, what is understood 5 minutes back, it gets into a confusion state very quickly. So, or not a confusing in a contradictory way, it's always leaving a little gap between full understanding and I thought, oh, I understood it. But then when I'm going a little deeper, the gap is becoming wider and it's not confusing. It's almost like, okay, let me now try to understand and figure it out. What is this? So is it Krishna's teachings are designed it that way to leave? It's a journey. It's never like you're going to figure it out so quickly and fast. What is your experience?
So the gap, Prabhu, is that of practice. Because so we talked about how Vigyan is a very, very key aspect. The realized knowledge. That it is difficult for us to sit and read the Bhagavad Gita and just get everything.
No.
Right. So we have to, it's just like Srila Prabhupada would give this example that you cannot read a book on medical science and become a doctor. Right. So that's the gap. And again, that gap is not unique to you. That is the gap that is, I don't know if it is by design but it is there. That between knowing and understanding, that gap is practicing. So as you practice what Krishna says, then that gap will shrink. Bhurijan Prabhu makes this point that and of course he's talking about the later chapters. He says if you're not able to understand when Krishna speaks about bhakti, chant one round, and then you'll see that you'll understand it a little better. There.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we'll stop over here, and Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you. Do we have somebody for Nursing Day prayer? Who's our designated driver?
Well, Krishna was supposed to be doing it, and Krishna seems to be busy with something else. So, can Divyansh lead the Nursing Day prayer then? Sunil Prabhu, Aradhana, are you there?
I didn't realize you're muted. I'm calling Divyansh and see if he can do that.
Okay. Okay, Prabhu.